Now, in this session, we are going to discuss a little bit more deeper in biometrics and how biometrics is enhancing or improving the IoT structure. Okay. So basically, when we talk about biometrics, biometrics is basically a conjugate of two words, that is bio and metric. Bio means biological and metric means measurement, right? So, in simple terms, biometrics is a biological measurement of human characteristics. Now, these characteristics can be various things. It can be the shape of your hair, it can be the eyes, it can be a fingerprint. There are so many options when it comes to working with biometrics. So if we are going to discuss about biometrics, please keep in mind that we are not going to just discuss about our iris or our eyes and our fingerprint. There are various other applications and there are various other technologies which are being built right now in terms of security to make sure all the data breaches are reduced to as low as possible. Okay, and at the end of this session, I'm going to discuss some advanced technologies that are being merged with biometric to make this system much more robust and much more reliable compared to any others. Okay. Yes. So let's start by understanding what different types of physiological biometric sensors or biometric features are there. First thing is most common thing that we must have heard or viewed is fingerprints. So fingerprint detection is pretty simple because as we say, everyone is having a unique fingerprint and that can't be matched or replicated by anyone else. Now, this is absolutely correct, but similar copies can be created out of it. So, you must have seen some sci fi movies and all there, right? In those movies, you must have seen getting a fingerprint data is not that hard. You have to just find a place where the impression was taken. You have to just use a tape or something. You can just replicate that data and you can create a pattern for it. Once you create a pattern, you can use that fingerprint anywhere and wherever you want where that fingerprint was detected. So when it comes to fingerprint, among all these technologies, fingerprint technology is something that is widely used and it is pretty simple to use also. And the device cost and everything is quite low when it comes to fingerprints. So that's why it is much more widely used. Next is finger or finger hands and veins. So when I'm talking about finger hands and finger veins, in this one, what happens is, uh, again, this feature is again unique for everyone. That means if I am showing you my hand and if I pass some amount of light through it, you will be able to see all the veins that are present in my hand. Now, these vein patterns are unique for every person and they don't match or replicate with anyone else. And if you have given measure of hand veins, it will be very difficult for someone to create a pattern for it. Because what they have to do is they have to create a hand mold and they have to prepare the veins in such a way that whenever light is passed, that same feature should be detected in those cases. So generally, when it comes to detecting hand veins and any complex geometry, we use some advanced algorithms that are written in computer vision technology or that are written in our image processing technology. I'll be discussing much more deeper about them as we move further and we discuss more type of physiological biometric sensors. Okay. Next thing is hand geometry. Now, hand geometry might sound that it's very simple and we can easily replicate it, but it takes a lot amount of effort to replicate exactly the hand geometry. Of course, we have seen hands with similar features between two or three people, but yes, it also takes a lot of time because each and every feature is being scanned and replicated in a 3D model. So whenever a hand geometry type of physiological biometric sensors are using, they are first thing they are scanning your hand completely and they are creating a 3D model of it. So whenever next time someone goes and keeps their hand, it will try to find the similarity between both the models. If both the models are similar to around 80 to 90%, then only it will accept the that particular hand geometry. Now, hand geometries can also be tested with help of image processing algorithms, which can create a contour around the body, which can create a contour around your hands and check whether those things are matching or not. If both of them are matching, then it will consider that as a true hand and it will give you the access for certain things. The next thing is iris recognition. Now, iris and retina are two separate things. We should not consider both of them as same, and they have their own unique way of detection. So, in iris and retina, they will be trying to determine how many cones and cylinders are present in your eyes, how they are changing, how they are dilating, whenever you are blinking and opening the eyes, how those things are detecting. So those kind of features are checked in these things and they will be tested on a very minute level. So it becomes very difficult for someone to replicate your iris recognition or retina recognition also. But yes, it is replicable. Again, you have seen in sci-fi movies. Of course, all the concepts are not correct when it comes to sci-fi movies. But yes, when tested in lab, we can replicate iris recognition as well. So this is also one technology that comes second after our fingerprints. So the most used right now is fingerprints. Then there is retina scan, and most common one that we are using currently is face recognition.
Mm.
Now, face recognition is present in almost all the mobile devices. It is present in all the mobile devices and is used widely to detect users. Now, this was first implemented by Apple in their Apple phones, and later many Android companies have replicated the same thing in their systems and build a facial recognition apps. Now, what this facial recognition app will do is it will try to scan the features of your faces. The features like eyes, nose, and lips. These will be the prominent features and it will try to recognize them at various angles. It will try to detect at sideways or front way, all these different angles it will try and recognize the face. I will also show you a simple algorithm you can build to detect the face recognition or what is the logic that goes behind a face recognition application. Next is ear shape. So ear shapes are again quite unique thing that we can compare when it comes to physiological biometric sensors. So we can also detect the ear shape and understand what is the geometry, and based on that we can take some informed decisions. Then thermography recognition. Now thermography recognition is quite interesting because it deals with the flow of temperature in your whole body. It's not just recognizing the feature of your hand anymore. It is not just determining the vein pattern. It is detecting how heat is flowing over all your body, how the blood is being pumped, and all this system will be determined by thermography recognition. Now, thermography recognition is impossible to replicate. Till this point, the technology is impossible to replicate. But of course, as we advance the technology, we will have certain loopholes, and we will be able to replicate this as well. But right now, it is pretty much impossible to replicate a thermograph. So thermograph technology can be done on two scales. It can be done only on your face or it can be done on your whole body. So when we do on your face, we will be passing some IR radiations on your face and we will be trying to capture those data. And those data will be compared with previous data of your faces, because everyone's face or every feature of the face will emit different amount of heat from the body. So it's not going to same for you and it's not going to be same for me. It's going to be completely different way of heat transfer. So that's why thermography has become much more popular now and it is widely used in law enforcement. Thermography is widely used in law enforcement. And next, most unique types are these two, that is DNA matching and voice recognition. So when I say DNA matching is actually taking some sample of person and testing those in labs and comparing whether their DNA is matching or not. Now, DNA matching is actually a quite lengthy process, and whenever I talk about a lengthy process, it's going to take a lot amount of time. So right now, DNA matching is not done majorly on any applications, but this one is actually being practiced for law enforcement agencies like our government on passport services and all. They are trying to implement DNA matching. Specifically, US is has started this experimentation where they are testing and matching DNA and trying to make a you know, remote trolley or vehicle which will be able to do these testing on hand. So this is also quite unique because in this also faking a DNA will be very difficult. Of course, if you give a wrong sample, then that's a different case. But yeah, it's very difficult to fake a DNA matching in these cases. Next is voice recognition. So voice recognition is again one technology that is used by so many applications, by so many softwares and so many devices. Especially your Alexa and Google Home are using voice recognition. Even your Siri is also using the same voice recognition technology and trying to understand whatever you're speaking. It will try to understand in your native language. That means if you are from India, it will try to compare it with the dictionary of Indo-American or basically Indian English. Okay. And before doing the voice recognition, it always takes some sample of the voice. So it can understand what is your pitch, what is your bass, all these things it will try to understand, and it will create a library for you. Now these libraries are again stored online. It's not stored in your local mobile, because of which whenever you connect a voice recognition on your mobile, you can also do the same thing on various other products in your home. So that is one advantage of having voice recognition by Google or Alexa or even Siri, right? So these are some physiological biometric operations that are done. And yes, so as I said, I'll start by explaining the hand geometry detection, or if you're using a computer vision technology, how you can detect a hand and how easy it is to understand the whole concept. So there are again two methods. One is photogrammetry method, where they will be taking different photos at different angles. Now this is the technology of 3D scanning. Okay. So when it comes to 3D scanning, one object will be placed and it will be taken photos from various angles. Okay. It will take photos of this particular object from various angles, from various viewpoints, so that as more photos will be there, it will be able to easily create much more accurate model of that particular body. Okay. So when I'm talking about hand geometry here, hand geometry is again done with the same thing. Your hand will be taken, it will be capturing images at various angles, and it will create a 3D model that will be stored in the software of the particular device, of that particular device. Once stored in that, next time when you put your hand there, it will again check the geometry features and check whether the hand has changed at all. If it has changed, it will try to compare whether both of them are giving at least 80% of accuracy or not. If not, then that hand will not get detected. So this is the method of photogrammetry, or basically the method where we use this technology by scanning images. Yes. So next thing is understanding or scanning hands or bodies with help of computer vision technology. Okay. So this technology is quite unique, and recently it is getting a lot of appreciation from everyone. Okay, let's say this is your hand. So there are various levels when it comes to computer vision technology. First will be getting or acquiring a image. Now that is pretty simple. After acquiring image, they will be running some operations like thresholding, I'll explain you what is thresholding. Then smoothing of the image. After smoothing, they will apply some filters, and at the end they will generate contours of the hand. After generating contours, they will create some local points. They will try to find some points. After finding those points, they will detect how many fingers are there. After detecting fingers, they will detect or check their shape. Okay, so there are two levels of testing here. First is creating contours. So for creating contours, we need to take an image and we need to apply a thresholding operation. Now thresholding operation is basically, let's say if you're taking a picture in well lit area, then your hand will be quite dark compared to the surrounding, right? So in those ways, you can program the software that if the pixel density is, let's say 50, and this hand is having pixel density of minimum is 100, then you can say keep a threshold at 70 or 80. Any value below this should be converted to a white image. So you can see the whole outline apart from your hand, everything else will be converted into a white image, which by this you'll be able to get a very clear picture of the hand. Now once the thresholding is done, we will apply a little bit of smoothing operation so that the boundaries will be much more smoother and it will be easy to detect. And after doing all these operations, we can generate contours of this hand. Now what exactly is contour? So let me go to the browser once and I'll show it to you. Right? So you can see this image, right? So in this image, we are basically detecting the data. We are converting everything. Here they have done the reverse thing. They have converted the background as black, and whatever is inside is being converted into white color. So this gives the contour of the hand. This gives the whole feature of the hand as an outline. Okay. So if anyone is able to replicate this hand, they can easily get the data. But next thing that comes is the distance between all these fingers. So you can see there are distance and there are fingers, right? So now for this one, we will come back here. So if you are showing your hands here, it will detect the gaps in between of all your fingers. Now this gap will be detected by applying some mathematical functions like cosine rule and sine rule, where they will try to detect the edges and they will try to detect the angle and where they meet. Okay. Based on this, they will be able to detect some common points in your hand. Once these points are detected, they will be able to understand like what is the change on the surface here. If they're able to understand that, then they can compare the information in much more depth. Okay. I hope it is understandable. Am I going way too far or something? If any doubts or questions, please feel free to ask.
Participants, if you have any queries, kindly ask.
No, sir, it's going good. For me, it's fine.
Okay. Okay. Great. So I'll just resume back then. So now we are able to understand how the contours are detecting. Then we decided and we found out the local points as well. These points we are able to detect. Then we, with these points, if there is one point, that means there are two fingers, right? So how many fingers are there is also determined. Now next thing will be comparing it with the actual image and then the comparison of shape. So this is how a hand image is being recognized by using computer vision. Okay. Then let's move to the next thing, that is our face recognition. So I am taking few points and I'm going to discuss a little more in details because these technologies are being widely used now, and it's good to have an understanding how these devices work if you are in this industry. Okay. So
Sir,
now next
excuse
thing
me,
is
sir.
facial recognition. Yes, sir.
Here, when you are explaining about like the facial features, so my request, if you could explain about how to measure like people, like eye pupil diameters. If someone is using a phone or watching television or watching a monitor or something, so how the pupil diameters, like the diameter may sometimes increase or decrease according to the amount of light is going inside our eyes. So if it is, how it is
Yes, sir.
possible to measure, if you could add when you are explaining about the facial features, will be beneficial, sir. Please consider.
Definitely, sir.
Yes,
So I'll take both of these inputs.
yes,
I'll first explain the facial feature,
yes,
which is the overall image, and then we'll go in a little deep of how retina is being detected.
yes. Fine, sir. Thank you. Yes,
Mhm. Yeah. So let's come here just to say. Okay. So now, next thing that we are going to understand here is we are going to understand how the facial feature is being detected of a person. So let's say if this is a person, right? If this is the face of a person and this is his eyes, right? Sorry, eyes, his nose, and this is his mouth, right? So the concept of determining a facial feature is pretty simple. So what we do is, again, we will be trying to understand the background and we'll try to understand how the face looks like. So uh, if I am standing on a white background, right? If I'm standing in front of a white background, so you'll be able to see these borders will be quite visible. These borders will be completely unique and they will suddenly show a color change in the image, right? Since here it is completely white, suddenly your skin tone will come here. So always the border of any face will look quite bright. Not just face, even if I place a chair in this domain, you'll be able to see that the outline is very important in these cases, right? Outline will be quite important. So first thing is we will be detecting whether there is an outline or not. Once we find out the outline, we will go inside that area and we'll try to detect more. So for that, there are certain image processing algorithms. So these algorithms use anchor tags to understand images. Okay. So whenever an image is placed in front of these cameras, they will create some anchor tags. So let's say this was the whole image. Okay. They will place a vector with 3 cross 3, 5 cross 5, and 7 cross 7. These three are the pixel values of a anchor tags which will be placed on any image. Now what these anchor tags will try to understand is, first thing is, let's say this is a eye, right? When it comes to a eye, there will be an eyebrow on top of it. There will be an eyebrow. So it will try to detect the shade colors. Okay. In this area, it will try to detect the shade color. On top, there will be a light skin. Then in middle, there will be a dark because of your eyebrows. Then there will be again a dark. So this whole thing will be considered as one thing. And after this, there will be a light color. So it is trying to detect feature something which is having some data similar to this: a white patch, a black patch, and a white patch. Now all the images will be converted to grayscale, so there will be no confusion when it comes to colors. So your eyes will look something like this. Now when it comes to your lips, now when it comes to a lips, you can see this is the lip, right? So there will be a black line in the middle and there will be some light color on your lips, or maybe in some cases it will be a dark color. So in these also it will try to detect a thin black line. When it comes to your nose, This is how the features are being detected when it comes to human body in cameras. Okay, so it will be having a black color line here, a black color line here. In middle, it will be having white or shiny surface. Okay, so they will try to detect patterns which look like this. Okay, now you can see these boxes are quite small. They are not going to be very big boxes. They are going to be very small boxes. And on borders, like when I was talking about the facial borders here, I am talking uh, a black color pattern on the inside and a white color pattern or light color pattern on the outside. So this way it understands that this is the face border. Okay, this is the face border, and these are some features of the person: eyes and nose and some lips, and their location should be relatively present in all the images. Okay, and when we try to detect a face, what we will do is we will place some anchor tags. As I said, one small blocks of anchor tags will be placed on the images that will move progressively. Okay, and their job is to find out two these kind of images for eyes, one this kind of image for the lips, and one this kind of image for your nose. Okay, and this operation will go continuously on multiple levels. First a 3 cross 3 will be checked, then a 5 cross 5, then a 7 cross 7, and each image will be computed with various images. And when compared that this is actually a human face, then those data will be saved in a software. Okay, then this face value will be saved in values of arrays. It will be saved in values of arrays, and next time when the same face comes, it will compare the array value with this value and check whether both the faces are having same features or not. Okay, is it understandable?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, great. So now that we have understood about how faces are detected, next thing will be retinas. So retinas are quite interesting. So
Excuse me,
when it
sir.
comes to,
Excuse me,
yes, sir.
sir. So that facial recognition you explained, fine. But when if the camera, if next time we are coming, the camera should be parallel, right? So if there is a orientation in the camera or the face is oriented some angle. So how will extract
Mhm.
and compare with the existing data?
So whenever we store the data for a face, we
Okay.
are not taking only from the front view. We are also asking the person to, show
Okay,
the
fine.
face from the
Okay.
side views and all.
Okay, fine,
So
fine.
we will just try to compare both of them. That's
Okay,
what we do in this
fine.
way. Okay. Next thing is retina scan. So retina scan is quite interesting because what they do is here, instead of relying on some software to detect features, they actually detect the blood vessels, the flow of blood vessels in these eyes. Okay. If this is an eye, what they will do is they will shine some amount of light, and they will use some ocular based technologies which will try to beam a amount of light on the eyes, and it will try to see how exactly blood vessels are connected inside the eyes. So they are not actually trying to detect the shape of the eye or something. They are trying to detect how the blood vessels are flowing inside of it, because imitating blood vessels is practically impossible when it comes to eyes. So that's why they are passing certain amount of light, and they're capturing that data, and they're creating that into a 2D map kind of thing, where they're storing all the information of the retina. And whenever the retina is new retina is coming to be compared, it will check whether both of them are same or not. If not, then it will be rejected, because retinas of a person don't change, and even the eye size of a person will never increase or reduce in the span of his life. The eyeballs remain of the same size for the whole life. So that's why imitating these things will be very difficult in these cases. Okay, yes. So now that we have discussed these things, let's come back to our presentation. Now we have discussed about DNA and voice matching also. Now next thing is we need to understand how biometrics are compared. So I was giving you this explanation, but this is a proper flow chart where we compare any kind of biometrics. So whenever a new feature enters the system, it is known as enrollment. Okay, enrollment in the sense whenever a new feature is coming or whenever a new face is coming, a new face is being enrolled. It is being detected here. That image will get captured and it will get processed and stored in the system. Okay. Now for verification, what will happen is it will take the original image, it will process that and it will compare with the new enrollment. If it matches, it will go on this side. If it doesn't match, it will show you an error like the face not detected or face not present in the directory. This kind of message will be appearing to you. So this is how biometrics are compared with each other. And this is a standard procedure that we use for detecting fingerprints. We use for detecting facial recognition. We use for detecting retinal scans. All these three technologies use the same method of biometric comparison. They use the method of enrollment and verification. Next is what all different trends are present in biometrics. So when it comes to biometric trends, it's quite interesting because majority of the biometrics force is used nowadays to improve or make our borders more secure. So majority of the trends are going to go towards the direction of border control or e-passport. Okay. So there is a technology called e-gates or as a standard name, ABS can be used nowadays. Now, this technology is built by US and is currently working in three countries. It is working in Iran, it is working in Afghanistan, and it is working in US, where the person need to have a digital passport. So the digital passport, you can see on the left hand side, I have shown the image how it's reading. So in that digital passport, it his DNA sample or his eye retina and all those kind of biometric information will be stored. Then that information will be passed through a contactless reader or scanner. Now that scanner will get the information from the passport and it will store in its own computer. Now then that person will be sent for face recognition system where those features will be compared. So it is not just comparing your retina, it is checking your facial features, it is checking the ear size and all those kind of things. And even fingerprints are taken in these cases. Once that facial recognition system and all these things are detected, next thing will be all this data will go to border control system. Okay. Now these are used at border controls in these countries because of the imminent threats that they have received till this point. Okay. So in border control system, what they will do, they will check all these security features. They will take the OCR, optical data recognition. So basically your card will be there, right? That will be scanned by a computer and that data will be shared to the BCS. Okay. Then it will be checked for authenticity. If all the documents and biometric verification is done, so first thing it will check is if documents are valid or not. If documents are not valid, then it will, just reject everything. It will not go for the next stage, that is biometric verification. So once the documents are valid, it will go for biometric verification. And once these biometrics are verified, it will go and check in the blacklists. So in each borders, they have created certain blacklists that these kind of person should not enter or go out. Now all this data is being stored on some online server or on a IoT device. This is not accessible directly. It requires again biometric and many other authentications. So all those data will be compared with the current information and check whether this person is valid or not, or this person is not present in the blacklist. If the person is not present in the blacklist, then only he or she is allowed to enter the country. So this is one advanced biometric trend that has appeared, and it is booming quite well and many countries and companies both are trying to adapt this smart feature of e-gates. It is known as e-gates, which are present at all the border patrols and at all the tools when it comes to borders. Now their country is also planning to implement a e-passport and a national ID and voter registration. So all these things will again be completely digital, and their information will be stored on cloud, where whenever this user comes for the first time, that data will be compared and checked whether it is true or not. Okay. Next is the trends that has came in biometrics in consumer application. So when I talk about consumer application, the first thing that comes in our mind is Google Home and Alexa, right? So when we talk about Google Home and Alexa, these both these systems are using something known as natural language processing methods. Okay, they use natural language processing, and what they will do is they will track all the information with recognizing your voice. So basically, your voice will be converted into vowels and letters. It will be broken down, and they will try to convert it into a text format, and they will compare that with the current information. Once they understand and once they recognize the voice, they will send that data to cloud, and via cloud, the communication will happen. Now, all this processing is actually taking place in cloud itself. So your NLP will be working on cloud, and that's why they don't have to create any specific module to check everything remotely in your computers. And that is again one more reason why Google Home and Alexa will require a continuous Wi-Fi support to make sure all your data is being transferred and it is being connected to each other. Okay. The next trend is the biometrics for healthcare industry, that is smart wearables. So biometrics extend their way to cardiovascular health. Basically, till this point, whatever we discussed in biometrics, or basically in terms of IoT, in previous example, I gave you an example of Tricog, right? So that company is also working on cardiovascular health. Then DOOS is also working on cardiovascular health, because tracking information of a human on a minute level by checking how the blood flow is there, how his temperature is there, all these things can be compared on a minute level by a device that is completely attached to the human, right? So in these cases, again, companies like Fitbit and even mi bands, all these things are being trending because they help the user to understand how their body is moving, how much calories they are burning, how much food intake is there, how much water they are taking, what all things they require to keep themselves safe. All these kind of information are provided to them. But of course, these devices are still not very accurate. They give a result of accuracy of at least 60 to 70%, not more than that. Okay. Uh, is it understandable, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I'll just move to the final slide here, that is trends in biometrics. So these are some trends that are going to come into picture nowadays, and few of them are already implemented, like smart weapons. So you must have seen that there are some weapons which require biometrics to be operated. That means only one user can use that gun, and whenever his fingerprint is detected, then only the weapon will get activated. Now, the same thing can be done on a larger scale where all the soldiers are interconnected to each other. So, I gave you the concept of smart soldiers, right? Where they will be connecting through a satellite and they will be receiving the information about their mission updates. They will get that information in their particular headsets and in terms of VR, where all the information will be displayed on their glass and be told, okay, so new tasks have been assigned to each member. You have to go in this direction. This person has to go in this direction. So that specific command will be sent to only specific people. Now it need not to be a mouth to mouth communication where, Now, nowadays people are relying on communication via signals or speech when it comes to battlefield, right? In this way, what will happen is the precise information will be sent by the leader to all the members, and in this case, they can perform their activities in much more cohort way or much more silent way. So that's why smart weapons and smart soldiers are again implemented by law enforcement agencies, and they're continuously working on these. Now, when it comes to biometrics and security, a new level of security is being added by combining them with blockchain. Okay. So blockchain is a fairly new technology which is currently used by many financial tech companies. Like you must have heard about blockchain. Sorry, this one. What was its name? Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a technology, or it is a platform which is using blockchain to protect its information. Now, the way blockchain works is so well that it perfectly integrates itself with our biometrics. So I would like to explain you how blockchain will work and how it's going to play a very important role when it comes to working with our biometrics. So when we talk about blockchain, as the name suggests, block and chain. So block basically discuss about a block of data, and chain in the sense all the data is interconnected to each other. That's what blockchain means. So now in each block, some data will be stored. Now this data will have a key to open this data. Okay. And when it comes to second block, again, the data will be stored and they will also have a key. Now this key will be dependent on the previous key. So if you want to open this particular block, this was the key that is present, and this is a password kind of thing. Okay. So this key need to be kept here, and you have to enter the password. Then only this block will open. And similarly, all these blocks are having the same feature. They will have this key connected to this one. Then from here to here, all the blocks will be interconnected. So the first block is always known as Nemesis block. Since it is not having its unique key, it will be some 0000 or FA or something like that. Okay, that will be the key for the first block. Now, this is the most basic practice that we do in blockchain is whenever we talk about two blocks, there are various levels of security in blockchain. Now, I just told you the most basic way the blockchain works, where both the blocks are connected to each other and each block is having a unique key. Now, the uniqueness of this key is it is programmed, or it is written by an algorithm SHA-256. This is an algorithm that was developed by US government earlier when there was a data breach in Pentagon. Okay, this was the first algorithm that they wrote that time, and it is quite robust. So what this algorithm does is it will convert any word, like whatever data you're writing. Let's say you're writing hello, it will convert it into a 16-bit information, 16 or 32-bit or 8-bit based on what kind of system you're using. It will convert this letter into this information, and now this information is the key. Okay, so if let's say you write hello and you give a space, okay, now then this information will suddenly change compared to this one. I can actually show it to you. Let's go to our web page right here. So this is a cryptographic hash algorithm, which let's say, as I said, if I write hello here, you can see a new hash is created, which is of 32 byte. Okay, this is of a 32 byte, and this big it is. Now, if I just give a space, you can see this hash value is changing drastically. Okay, This is the speciality of this one. So let's say if I write hello and I want this hash, what I did is you can't unhash this data. That means you can't decode this data and get back the original letter. So if you write here this hash value, you can see it is creating hash for that hash value. So if you're going for a security, this is one of the best method to create a security way, because these hashes are totally unencryptable. You can't tamper with these values. Even if you tamper with these values, what will happen is, let's say you were able to access this block and you change the hash value for this one. But since this hash value is given as a key for the next block, this block you will not be able to access this block because your hash value and this hash value doesn't match. Okay, this is one level of security. The next level is peer-to-peer connection. That means this is basically working on proof of work concept. That means let's try to understand by taking an example of buying a land. Okay, there is a first person connected to another one and third one. So I purchased a house from this third person. Okay. Now, when I purchase this house, all the information will be linked to me and also to all other members. That means, let's say this was the first person who purchased the house. After him, he sold it to some other person. That is, this is one, this is two, and this is third person. Okay. And I am getting added to the block. So when the first person sold the house to second person, that information was connected in his database, as well as that information was connected to the second person database. Now, when a third person added that information, that data was connected to his information. Similarly, it was connected to everyone's other's information. So everyone is having the access of full data, and their data is uniquely saved in their computers. It is not being shared with anyone right now. Okay. So they have their information individually with them, and they also can't tamper with the information. So let's say one hacker comes into picture and he wants to buy this house after me buying it. Okay. So what he thought was, if I'm able to change the fourth block information, he can remove my name and he can put his name in this block, then he'll be able to access my property, right? That's what he thought. And somehow he was able to crack this block and he updated his information. Now, once a new block is updated in the system, what blockchain does is it communicates to other blocks or other users as well, the previous user, to get a confirmation. So when he changed this name, blockchain went and asked whether this is Kaustubh only. It will ask to everyone whether this is Kaustubh or it is some other hacker. So it will check that now the name has been changed to Troy. Okay, let's say the name has been changed to Troy, and these people will say no, the user is still Kaustubh and the detail here is Troy. So it will understand like, okay, this is something wrong, and it will immediately cancel this transaction. So in this way, the data is being communicated with everyone, and this data is unique to everyone. Okay. Now let's say someone tried to hack the first block itself. Now for that, after hacking the first block, he needs to open each and every block to make the data correct for himself. Now, whenever a new block is added, you need to give the proof of this information within the span of 10 minutes. Okay. If you're not able to provide the information within 10 minutes, the next block will understand like, okay, this was a failed attempt. Okay. And in this world currently, there is no computer who can solve the, who can crack actually, who can, forcefully crack the information from any blockchain within 10 minutes. So in this way, the whole blockchain has made a very secure way of transferring information from one place to another. And when this information integrated with your fingerprint information, right? This fingerprint will create a new hash, and this hash is unique because only you have this fingerprint, right? Then it becomes practically impossible for someone to crack this data. Am I right? Yes, so let's come back here, right? So is anyone having any doubts till this point in this concept? Okay, okay, great. So this was the whole idea of me explaining you the what all trends are there that are coming up in the blockchain technology and how they are going to make a record break change in terms of security. Because security is something that we all need in all the devices. Right now, out of those 50 billion IoT devices, only 1% of devices are having impenetrable security, which means still a lot of devices are susceptible to changes and are susceptible to hacking. So it's always a good measure to make sure that everything is safe in these things. So with this, I would like to end this session.